Most men spend their entire lives believing a comfortable lie, that working hard, being a good person, and expecting recognition is enough to succeed. It isn't. It never has been. And the sooner you understand this, the less time you'll waste living on autopilot, being ignored, manipulated, or simply forgotten. Because the truth, the one almost no one dares to say, is simple and brutal. The world doesn't reward intentions, it responds to stance. While a select few learn to play the silent game of power, the majority remain trapped in rules that only work in theory. They talk too much, trust too quickly, expose themselves too much, and then don't understand why they are overtaken by less capable but far more strategic people. This isn't luck. This is understanding true human nature. It's understanding that often the end justifies the means, not in the vulgar sense of the phrase, but in the ability to act with composure, precision, and intelligence when necessary. And perhaps the most uncomfortable thing of all is this: no one will teach you these laws directly. They aren't taught in school, they aren't openly discussed, and they're almost always discovered too late, after accumulated mistakes, losses, and frustrations. But what if you could shorten that path? What if there was a set of principles that, when applied consistently, would completely transform how you are seen, treated, and respected? Today, you're going to understand exactly that. But be careful. Once you see it, there's no going back. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. There's a silent flaw that destroys more men than a lack of talent, the need to constantly prove one's worth. He enters a room and immediately wants to show everything he knows, everything he's achieved, everything he can do. It seems like strength, but in practice it's disguised weakness. Those who understand the real game, the one the prince hints at between the lines, know that power doesn't shout, it suggests. It doesn't reveal itself all at once. It reveals itself in calculated doses. When you show all your cards right from the start, you lose the only advantage that truly matters: mystery. And without mystery, you become predictable. And someone predictable is easy to control. Now think of someone who speaks little, but when they do, everyone pays attention, not because they demand respect, but because no one knows exactly how far they'll go. That's the point. True presence comes from the uncertainty you create around you. A man who reveals everything about himself eliminates any need for others to investigate, respect, or even fear his abilities. But the one who keeps layers, that creates tension, and tension generates authority. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals. It's not about being closed off or arrogant. It's about understanding that information is power, and whoever distributes power irresponsibly weakens themselves without realizing it. In practice, this means learning to hold your tongue more often than you let it out. It means not revealing your next steps, not exposing your plans prematurely, not disclosing your vulnerabilities to those who haven't yet proven their loyalty. Want a simple example? If you're starting a project, don't announce it to everyone before you have concrete results. Work quietly. Let people discover it. This creates real impact. Another point: avoid the need to justify everything. Those who over-explain, try to convince others. Those who have power simply are. And this connects to something even deeper, because if you don't control what you reveal, you'll hardly be able to control something much more dangerous: what you feel. There's a stark difference between feeling and being controlled by what you feel, and most people never learn this. The average person reacts. They explode, get irritated, take offense, get too excited, and without realizing it, hand over control of their own life to anyone who knows how to push the right buttons. But the one who understands the game, the real game, where decisions are based on real human nature, doesn't try to suppress emotions. They learn to master them. Because emotion is not weakness. Poorly managed emotion, that's when it becomes a weapon against you. And whoever masters that, masters environments, conversations, and even invisible conflicts. Consider simple situations. Someone provokes you, tests you, tries to destabilize you. If you react in the heat of the moment, you've already lost. The argument doesn't matter, the reason doesn't matter. Whoever loses emotional control surrenders power. This is exactly where that silent logic comes in. The calculated use of force doesn't begin with external action, but with internal control. A man who remains calm under pressure creates something rare: immediate respect. And more than that, he becomes unpredictable, because nobody knows how to get to him. This isn't coldness, it's strategy. It's understanding that often silence is worth more than any impulsive response. Now, in practice, this requires training. It's not automatic. A good start: get into the habit of pausing before reacting. 5 seconds, breathe. It seems simple, but it changes everything. Another strategy: process your emotions in private. Felt angry? Great. Analyze it later, alone. Write it down, practice it, reflect on it. Don't turn it into a public spectacle. And more, avoid important decisions when you are emotionally charged, whether anger, euphoria, or anxiety. Big mistakes stem from decisions made at the peak of emotion. Those who want to grow need to develop this constant adaptability, because in the end, it's not about not feeling. It's about never allowing what you feel to be used against you. And this begins to reveal something even deeper, because not everyone who is by your side is truly with you. There's a comfortable illusion that deceives many people, believing what people say instead of observing what they do. Promises are cheap. Words are easy. Anyone can say they're with you, that they support you, that they're loyal, until the pressure mounts. And it's at that exact point that the truth emerges. Those who understand how the game works, and here comes that cold, almost surgical vision of the prince, don't measure loyalty by speeches, but by behavior under risk, because it's easy to be an ally when everything is going well. The difficult part is remaining when there's something to lose. A man who lives guided by appearances of virtue tends to fall into this trap. He believes what he wants to hear, ignores clear signs, and clings to the idea that people are what they say they are. But reality doesn't work that way. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands cold observation. Who disappears when you need them? Who changes their stance when a better opportunity arises? Who only approaches when you have something to offer? These small signs are more valuable than any emotional declaration. And furthermore, true loyalty is almost never noisy. It doesn't need to be announced. It proves itself in silence. In practice, this completely changes how you relate to others. Instead of trusting quickly, you observe. Instead of surrendering emotionally, you test. Small tests even. See how the person reacts to your refusal. Observe if they respect your boundaries. Notice how they behave when you have nothing to offer. This isn't paranoia, it's strategy. Because blindly trusting is an open invitation to be manipulated. And here's an important point. Avoid becoming emotionally dependent on anyone before validating who they really are. Your own loyal armies have always been more effective than fragile alliances. And when you start to see this, you realize that perhaps the problem isn't just who's by your side, but who's controlling how you're seen by others. There's a truth few face. You are not seen as you are. You are seen as you are perceived. And that difference changes everything. Most people live believing that simply being good, competent, and genuine is enough, and the world will naturally recognize that. It doesn't work that way. It never has. Those who understand the game, the same one described with almost uncomfortable precision in The Prince, know that perception is a construct. And those who don't control that construct become characters in someone else's story. And usually, they're not the protagonist. Think about it. How many times has someone been misunderstood simply because they didn't know how to position themselves? Or worse, because they left room for others to define who they were. Information is power, but perception is control. A man who ignores this becomes vulnerable, because it doesn't matter what he does, but how it is interpreted. And here's a strategic point. The appearance of virtue. It doesn't mean being false, it means understanding that in the real world, how you present yourself directly influences the kind of respect you receive. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals. It's not about being someone different. It's about ensuring your message isn't distorted. In practice, this requires constant awareness. You need to choose what you show, how you show it, and when you show it. For example, avoid exposing weaknesses in environments where they can be used against you. Share victories strategically, not to validate yourself, but to establish authority. Use silence as a tool when necessary, but also know when to speak so as not to leave dangerous gaps. Another important point, observe how influential people communicate. They don't say everything, they don't react to everything, but they always make things clear enough to guide perception. This is the calculated use of force, not physical but symbolic, because in the end, whoever controls the narrative controls the game, and whoever doesn't control it will eventually be pushed out of it. And perhaps, at that moment, you will begin to perceive something even more strategic. Sometimes, leaving the scene is more powerful than remaining in it. There is a moment in every man's life that separates the ordinary from the dangerous, and it's not noisy. It doesn't involve applause, recognition, or external validation. On the contrary, it happens in silence. While most are distracted, reacting to the world, seeking approval, chasing constant stimuli, there is one who decides to distance himself, not out of weakness, not out of escape, but out of strategy, because he understands something that few accept. Whoever cannot bear to be alone will never bear the weight of their own power. The modern world pushes you towards noise all the time. Notifications, opinions, distractions, empty conversations. And the more you expose yourself to it, the more reactive and less strategic your mind becomes. A man who lives surrounded all the time can hardly think clearly. He reacts, adapts to the environment, loses his identity. Now, the one who strategically withdraws begins to develop something rare: vision. He starts to observe patterns, understand behaviors, see the game as it really is. This is constant adaptability in practice. It's getting out of autopilot and taking control. And here comes a powerful logic. He who masters himself in silence will hardly be mastered in chaos. In practice, this means creating intentional moments of isolation. You don't need to disappear from the world, but you do need to learn to withdraw from it frequently. It could be a walk without your phone, an hour of the day completely offline, or even longer periods focused on inner development. Want to take it to the next level? Use this time to think strategically about your life. Where are you wasting energy? Who is draining your attention? What decisions are you postponing out of fear or comfort? Another point: Consume less and produce more. Instead of spending hours absorbing content, start structuring ideas, writing, planning. This is the beginning of a silent but extremely powerful movement, because while many are trying to stand out, some are preparing to dominate. And interestingly, this completely changes the way you move, because acting out of necessity no longer makes sense. There's an invisible scent that people can smell, and it betrays everything. Desperation. You can try to hide it, disguise it with pretty words, maintain a seemingly firm posture, but when your decisions stem from necessity, it shows. And worse, it invites manipulation. Those who understand true human nature quickly perceive when someone desperately needs something, approval, money, attention, validation, and uses it to their advantage. That's why one of the most ignored, yet most powerful principles is simple. Never negotiate from a place of scarcity, because those who are in need will accept anything. Now observe the opposite. A man who has options, who can say no, who doesn't depend on a single outcome to move forward. This man completely changes the game. He doesn't beg, he doesn't chase after every opportunity, he doesn't submit to any condition. He chooses, and this creates something extremely valuable: real power. Here comes that silent logic that few truly apply. Better to be feared than loved, but never to be seen as dependent, because dependence immediately reduces your value. Autonomy, on the other hand, increases your presence without you needing to say a word. In practice, this requires building. You're not born with options, you create them. A clear example: don't depend on a single source of income. If you only have one today, start building another, even a small one. It could be a side project, a monetizable skill, something digital. Another point: in relationships, never place all your emotional stability in a single person. This creates fragility. And more, learn to walk alone if necessary, because those who know they can support themselves never accept crumbs. This is virtù and fortuna in motion. You build your capacity while positioning yourself better in the face of opportunities. And little by little, you begin to realize something uncomfortable, but extremely powerful. Many of your greatest evolutions came precisely from the people who tried to bring you down. Most people see opposition as something to be avoided, fought, or eliminated, but that's a limited view. Those who truly evolve learn to observe the enemy with a different perspective, almost like a study, because whether you like it or not, they reveal your weaknesses faster than any ally. Friends tend to spare, soften, protect. The enemy, on the other hand, exposes, and this exposure, when used well, becomes one of the most valuable tools for growth. It's uncomfortable, of course. But since when does growth come from comfort? If someone attacks you, criticizes you, or tries to bring you down, there's always a silent choice happening. React emotionally or analyze strategically. The average person reacts. The person who plays the real game observes. They ask themselves, what here is true? Where is the flaw that has been exposed? This doesn't mean passively accepting everything. It means extracting value even from opposition. This is a direct application of decisions based on real human nature, because at its core, every conflict carries information, and information is a competitive advantage. Those who learn to read this information begin to evolve faster than average. In practice, this requires emotional maturity and strategic intelligence. A simple exercise: every time someone criticizes you, instead of immediately defending yourself, write it down. Reflect on it later, alone. If 10% of that criticism is true, it's already worth its weight in gold. Another point: observe patterns. If different people point out the same flaw, perhaps there's something you're not yet seeing. And more, Don't waste energy trying to prove you're right all the time. Use that energy to evolve. Because in the end, the enemy doesn't need to be eliminated immediately. They can be used as a tool for refinement. And curiously, when you start to see this, you begin to realize that the greatest resource you have isn't in the people around you. It's in the time you have to transform yourself. Money you lose and recover. Status you gain and lose. People come and go. But time doesn't come back. And the most dangerous thing is that it doesn't announce when it's being wasted. It slips away silently while you think you still have later. Most people live as if they were eternal, postponing decisions, delaying actions, trading construction for distraction. And that's exactly why they remain stagnant. Those who understand the real game, those who follow the logic of decisions based on real human nature, treat time as the most valuable asset that exists. Because in the end, your life is literally the sum of how you used your days. Now observe the pattern of most people. They wake up without intention, consume more than they produce, react to whatever comes their way, live on autopilot. This isn't a lack of ability. It's a lack of awareness. A man who doesn't govern his own time is, in practice, being governed by everything around him. But the one who structures his days with intention begins to build something rare: direction. And direction creates power. Because when you decide where your energy goes, you stop being carried and start leading. This is constant adaptability applied to real life. It's not rigidity, it's strategy. It's knowing when to accelerate, when to stop, and when to completely ignore what doesn't add value. In practice, this starts with something simple: viewing your routine as a reflection of your true values. If you say you want to grow but spend hours on distractions, there's a clear misalignment. So, adjust. Define blocks of time for strategic activities: studying, building, training, reading. Want a concrete example? Set aside 1 hour a day to develop a skill that can generate income in the future. Another thing, eliminate invisible waste. Time on social media without purpose, conversations that lead nowhere, decisions postponed out of fear. A king doesn't negotiate with his own time, he decides. And when you start doing this, you realize something inevitable. Your results cease to be random and become a direct consequence of your choices. And then a new risk arises. A silent risk that destroys more progress than any mistake. The need to show the world what you have achieved. There's a trap that seems harmless, but silently destroys growth. The need to announce victories before they're solidified. Someone achieves something small and immediately wants to post it, tell everyone about it, show it off, validate it. It seems like motivation, but often it's just a neediness disguised as progress. Those who truly understand the game know that premature recognition weakens their own hunger. When you celebrate too much too soon, you create a false sense of accomplishment, and those who feel they've already arrived stop evolving. Furthermore, there's an even more strategic factor. Exposure attracts attention, and not all attention is positive. When you start showing too much, you trigger envy, comparison, and in some cases, direct opposition. This isn't paranoia, it's reality. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches exactly this. Not everything that is true needs to be revealed. The appearance of virtue, narrative control, the calculated use of force. All of this also involves knowing what to keep hidden. Because silence, when used well, protects, and protection sustains long-term growth. In practice, this means learning to celebrate internally, not publicly. Achieve something? Great. Acknowledge it, value it, but get back to work. Another point. Avoid sharing plans and goals before executing them. This drains energy and creates unnecessary pressure. Want a clear example? People who announce they're going to start something big often don't. But those who simply start later show up with results. That's the pattern. And more, the less you speak, the more impact you generate when you act. This is virtù and fortuna working together. You build in silence and appear at the right moment. And when you start operating like this, you naturally become someone who doesn't need to ask for attention, because your presence already demands it. Ultimately, none of these laws work in isolation. True power emerges when they all begin to operate together, almost invisibly. A man who maintains mystery, controls his emotions, chooses his alliances well, masters his narrative, retreats when necessary, doesn't act out of desperation, learns from his enemies, protects his time and builds in silence. That man reaches a new level. He doesn't need to impose himself. He is felt, and that is rare, because most want to appear strong, but few become unavoidable. There's a subtle difference between drawing attention and being impossible to ignore. Those who draw attention usually force it, speaking loudly, overexposing themselves, seeking validation. Those who become impossible to ignore build it, silently, consistently, with direction. And when they appear, they don't generate curiosity, they generate impact. This is the result of decisions based on real human nature. There's no romanticizing here. There's strategy, there's repetition, there's consistency, and above all, there's self-control. Because ultimately, the greatest mastery has never been over others. It's always been over oneself. In practice, this means stopping the search for shortcuts and starting to build foundations, work on your skills, develop your mindset, refine your communication, strengthen your discipline. Want something concrete? Choose an area of your life and become obsessively good at it. Study, practice, apply. Read things that expand your vision. Books like The Prince, or even works like Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Develop presence. Speak less. Observe more. Act with intention. And above all, maintain consistency. Because in the end, it's not one movement that transforms. It's strategic repetition over time. And when you start operating at that level, something changes definitively. You stop trying to be relevant and become inevitable. Now let me ask you a question, and answer honestly, even if it's just to yourself. How many times have you sabotaged yourself without realizing it? How many times have you talked too much, trusted the wrong people, reacted impulsively, exposed yourself too soon? Or simply let time slip away while telling yourself that you would start later? Most people don't fail because of a lack of ability. They fail because they ignore these silent laws that govern the game. And from now on, you no longer have that excuse, because knowledge without application is just a comfortable illusion. So the question changes, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to continue operating on autopilot, waiting for things to change on their own? Or are you going to start acting differently with intention, strategy, and control? Which of these laws do you most need to apply today? Which one do you know deep down that you've been avoiding facing? These answers say much more about your future than any beautiful plan you've ever made. And here's the final point. Or perhaps the beginning. Nobody's going to do this for you. Nobody's going to wake you up, pull you up, push you. Either you take control or someone else takes control for you. So you decide. And if this kind of content resonated with you, if any part of it really touched you, then subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here, you won't find empty motivation. You'll find clarity. And sometimes, that's exactly what separates those who observe the game from those who dominate it.